Shocking, CEO's mute daughter finally speaks, the unexpected bond with a brave black single mom. The room fell silent as if the walls themselves held their breath. It was an ordinary Tuesday at Stratos Corp, but the air crackled with something electric, a tension so thick it was palpable. Everyone was buzzing with rumors about Lydia Hayes, the CEO's daughter, who hadn't uttered a single word in over a decade. Suddenly, she would be speaking. The whispers ricocheted off the walls, each voice a mixture of disbelief and intrigue. Lydia was known for her exceptional beauty, a porcelain doll with dark, expressive eyes. But it was the mysterious silence around her that captivated everyone. Each glance at her reminded people of an enigma, a riddle waiting to be solved. She floated through the hallways like a ghost, her presence felt but never heard. Today was different. Today, a brave single mom named Michelle entered the picture, her reputation as a community champion, a tough, no-nonsense woman who didn't back down from a challenge, was about to merge with Lydia's story in an explosive way. As the clock ticked down, a palpable anticipation filled the air. What should have been just another press conference transformed into a potential reality show. You could hear a pin drop as the doors swung open. Lydia, usually so reserved, stepped onto the stage, her heart pounding visibly. Could this really be the moment she'd break her silence? The audience leaned forward, eyes wide, breaths caught. Then there was Michelle, standing strong to the side, her heart racing with a mixture of worry and hope, a bond forming over their shared adversities. Fear gripped Lydia. She could feel the weight of expectations. But in the midst of that crippling weight, a flicker of courage ignited deep within her, something powerful she didn't know she had. She glanced up at Michelle, whose encouraging smile felt like sunlight breaking through the storm clouds. Was it true? Could she finally speak? Suddenly, Lydia moved to the microphone, the world watching, hearts in their throats, ready to witness the unimaginable. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. With one deep breath, Lydia took her courage in hand, and her lips quivered in the heavy silence. Mom, she finally whispered, her voice barely audible but breaking the dam of a decade's worth of words. Gasps filled the room, shockwaves reverberating. Was that really all it took? One word? Friends, it wasn't just a word, it was a key unlocking doors long bolted shut. What did this mean for Lydia's journey ahead? What other truths lay shrouded in her silence? And what would happen to the bond with Michelle that had unknowingly woven into this moment of breakthrough? The excitement in the air was electric, but also filled with uncertainty, leaving everyone hungry for what lay ahead. The sound of Lydia's whisper hung in the air like a bell tolling in a quiet village, reverberating through the hearts of everyone present. It wasn't just a name. It was a confession, a yearning, and a catalyst all at once. The murmur of the crowd shifted from shock to intrigue, the curiosity morphing into a low hum of collective speculation. Michelle felt a rush of emotions flood her: hope, pride, but most of all, an overwhelming urge to protect Lydia from whatever storms loomed ahead. The powerful CEO's daughter would now be thrust into the spotlight, a place so bright it could burn, but she wasn't alone. Their bond was the lifeline she desperately needed. With a firm grip and courage surging through her, Michelle took a step forward, her voice cutting through the swell of whispers. Lydia, she called softly, her eyes anchored to Lydia's gaze, you did it. You reached for your voice. That's just the beginning. But the murmurs only escalated around them. Was that really all she had to say? The world was ready for her truth. Reports flooded in about the CEO's unyielding control and scrutiny over Lydia's life, painting an ominous picture of an upbringing that was anything but nurturing. Could it be that Lydia hadn't been free to express herself? The audience was gripped by a visceral mix of compassion and outrage. Then, a thunderous voice cut through, a journalist from a major outlet stepping up with intent. "Lydia, what barriers have held you back? Why now? What happened?" Every eye turned back to Lydia, waiting. The pressure intensified. Lydia hesitated, her fingers trembling as she clutched the microphone. She opened her mouth, a battle of emotions playing behind her dark eyes. The air tightened, holding its breath again. But just as she seemed ready to continue, the doors of the conference room swung open forcefully. A figure stood, introduced by the flurry of gasps, stepping inside as if heralding a storm. Her father, Richard Hayes, a figure draped in authority, the very embodiment of the empire he'd built. "Lydia!" he bellowed, his tone a mix of wrath and urgency. "What are you doing?" Lydia's heart plummeted at the sight of him. The memories flooded back, harsh criticisms, suffocating expectations, and that unmistakable hurt. Michelle instinctively moved closer, resonating strength enveloping Lydia like a protective shield. Richard's arrival shifted the atmosphere dramatically. The crowd's murmurs morphed into frantic questions, laced with sensational urgency. What will he do? Will he silence her? Will she back down? Lydia's throat tightened. She felt the world collapsing around her, a suffocating sense of dread welling in the pit of her stomach. She had found the courage to speak, but would it all unravel before it truly began? Michelle stepped in front of Lydia, offering a bold stance against his imposing presence. "Respect her voice," she shouted, the conviction ringing out like a battle cry. Silence fell over the room, and for a moment, it felt like time had stopped. All eyes were on them, father and daughter, shielded by an unexpected ally. Lydia's heart raced. Would she shed the shadow of her father's influence, or would he silence her once more? Behind the facade of power stood vulnerability. The stage was set for a confrontation, and every heartbeat echoed one single question: was Lydia ready to fight for her voice, or would she allow the silence to choke it once again? As she stood there, grappling with her choices, the world waited with bated breath, yearning for the next move in this high-stakes chess game. Lydia's breath hitched, a knot twisting in her chest. Moments stretched into eternities as Richard's glare bore down on her. The air electrified with tension, not just between father and daughter but binding the entire audience through their shared anxiety. "Lydia," Richard's voice twisted like a blade, harsh and unyielding. "This is not your place. You don't understand what you're doing." Cold sweat broke out on the back of her neck. He was here, and with him came the memories of every misconceived expectation he'd ever laid on her, his staunch, demanding presence shielding her fragile spirit. But there was Michelle, unwavering and fierce. "Stop," Michelle asserted, a fierce protector in a den of wolves. "You can't keep her silent anymore. She won't let you." Richard's jaw tightened, and the audience watched his reaction with a mix of anticipation and trepidation. Lydia could feel the shift, the crowd moved like a single entity, as if collectively inhaling. Would they stand with her? Would they support her truth? "Enough!" Richard shot back, his voice booming like thunder. "What does she know? This is about business, about reputation." Lydia's heart raced. His logs burned bright as they danced across the wooden stage, illuminating the truth she could finally grasp. This wasn't about him, it was about her. And she refused to let him paint this moment with his darkness. "I know you see me as a pawn," she finally said, her voice trembling but firm. "But this is my story now." The room erupted into stunned silence. The once vibrant murmurs fell flat. Every face reflected disbelief, intrigue, and burgeoning support. The journalists leaned in, hungry for the revelation as cameras flickered to life, capturing every blinking eye and twitch of anticipation. Richard's face twisted in disbelief. "You naive girl. You think this is bravery? You're endangering everything I've built. Danger hummed in the air. The threat was palpable, but Lydia felt something stir inside her, an ember igniting, fueled by the presence of the room, the warmth of Michelle beside her. No, Dad. I'm taking control. The crowd erupted, applause crescendoing like rising waves crashing against the starkness of tyranny. Each clap felt like a lifeline, and tears pricked Lydia's eyes. This moment was hers. Richard's expression morphed, and in that moment, she saw cracks in the armor of his power. The slightest flicker of fear danced in his eyes, but he covered it quickly with anger. You will regret this. He spat, spiking the air with venom. Regret the silence or regret the truth? Lydia countered, her chest heaving. You want to control me, but I've always been more than that. Michelle squeezed Lydia's shoulder, grounding her as if to say, you can do this. But outside the sanctity of their connection, chaos brewed. A reporter shouted a question, echoing above the din. What's next for Lydia Hayes after this revelation? Lydia turned her gaze outward, lock-in eyes with the sea of faces burning with curiosity. She made a decision. The truth will come out, and this is just the start. The crowd erupted once more, but Richard's fury pulsed through the air, a storm threatening to break. He stepped closer, his voice low but laced with menace. Don't think this is over, Lydia. I will not let you destroy our name. Chills skated down her spine, but she stood resolute. With Michelle by her side, she felt a surge of strength. It was a battle, but Lydia had just begun to play her hand. The walls of the conference room felt as if they were closing in, the room brimming with unsaid possibilities and unyielding tension. What would Richard do next? Would he further threaten her, or was this revelation just the spark that ignited the flame of rebellion against a suffocating empire? The crowd held their breath, the stakes greater than ever, as shadows of the past loomed, daring her to take that next step into the light. The air in the room shifted from electric to somber as Lydia faced her father, both fear and resolve battling for prominence within her. Richard's fury swirled like a storm cloud, casting shadows over every face in the audience. A single bead of sweat trickled down her back, racing down to pool at the small of her spine, where it ignited a fierce determination. The truth? Richard spat, his voice rising, echoing off the walls, you know nothing of truth. You're nothing without me. Lydia clenched her fists, her nails digging into her palm. The pressure built around her, but she wouldn't let him smother her. I'm everything because of me, Dad. The words burst forth, fierce and unapologetic. Gasps rippled through the audience, eyes wide with shock at her defiance. The journalists were scribbling notes furiously, capturing every word, every shift of emotion. It was chaos interwoven with awe, and Lydia drank it in, letting it fuel her fire. Richard stepped closer, invading her space, his presence darkening the light around her. You can't say these things without understanding the consequences. Your ignorance will cost you everything. The weight of his threat hung in the air, tangible and suffocating. Lydia felt Michelle's warm presence beside her, a steady reminder that she was not alone in this battle. No more threats, Dad. I won't be silenced any longer. She was quivering, but not from fear. This was adrenaline, pure and raw. Richard drew back slightly, the realization hitting him like a slap. His daughter had long been his secret weapon, his silence in the face of the world. Yet here she stood, knowing who she was and more importantly who she wanted to be. She was done being a pawn in his game of power. The crowd stirred, murmurs of disbelief gave way to whispers of support. But Richard wasn't done yet. This isn't just a personal issue. Do you really care about the family business? About your mother? Keeping this going could ruin us all. Lydia's heart sank, but only for a moment. She couldn't let doubt seep in. You think I don't care? I want to destroy what's left of our family by living behind your shadow. The conviction in her voice sent ripples through the audience, challenging Richard's claim. A reporter shouted, Is this where your fight begins, Lydia? Will you take legal action? Yes, she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. This isn't just about my family name. It's about everyone who has ever been silenced. This isn't just my fight, it's for all those who've suffered under someone like my father. The room erupted into applause again, this time drowning in fierce support, drowning out Richard, who stood there seething. Lydia felt the swell of unity, and it was intoxicating. But Richard's eyes flashed with the kind of menace that sent a fresh surge of dread cutting through her. You think you can bring the Empire down? I'll make sure you regret this, Lydia. You are just a child playing a game far bigger than you can comprehend. Was I a child when I endured your manipulation? Or have I just woken up? She could feel the truth of her words resonate with those around her. A crack had formed in Richard's armor, a momentary shudder of uncertainty. The audience sensed it too, feeding off the tension like moths to a flame. Lydia reveled in it, each clap, each gasp, lifting her closer to a state of exhilaration, but as the energy pulsed through the audience, Lydia noticed a movement in the corner of her eye. A shadowy figure slipping out of the back of the room, inciting every warning bell to clang inside her mind. Who was that? Dad? She stammered, the realization dawning. Richard turned, his attention diverted. What now? But it was too late. The figure had vanished, and Lydia was left wondering what secrets lay behind that departure. Would it lead to more danger or a chance for freedom? Was she ready for the truth that might blow this all wide open? And would Richard retaliate in ways she couldn't even fathom? The next move could change everything, but for now, everything hung in fragile balance, the thrill of the moment crackling with uncertainty. The audience remained in shocked silence, the echoes of Lydia's declaration still hanging heavy in the air. Richard, trapped in his fury, struggled to regain control. Lydia could feel the tension rising in her chest, the thrill of confronting her father mixing with the unresolved dread of what was to come. She dared not look back, but the lingering question of that shadowy figure, who slipped silently out of view, gnawed at her. What the hell was that? Richard thundered, his brow furrowing, rage bubbling beneath his calm facade. He pointed a finger at Lydia, as if the act alone could drag her back into his world of control. You're unraveling everything we built. You're making a mistake no one can fix. I'm making the right choice, Dad, Lydia countered, her voice stronger than it felt. Choices that will change lives. Not just mine, but others out there suffering. Around her, the journalists seized upon the tension, the flashes from cameras capturing every shift, every frown on Richard's face, every flicker of determination in Lydia's eyes. Only now did she realize that beyond the thunderous applause and the unsettled murmurs, there was something brewing amid the storm, an unexpected ally, one who might just understand the gravity of her stand. Michelle squeezed her hand, an anchor, a quiet resolve to reinforce her strength. You did great, she whispered, her voice cutting through the chaos. But Lydia barely heard. Her thoughts were consumed by the shadow that slipped away, a ghost that could haunt her choices. Was someone watching? Following her down a path she was embarking on? The questions raced faster than she could keep up with. The moment felt too charged, like a pressure cooker ready to blow. She needed answers. The crowd began to disperse, the excitement lingering like a thick fog. Lydia stepped toward the edge of the stage, searching for the familiar face amidst the chaos. Wait, who was that? She called out, her voice calling attention as she pointed to the exit. Richard's eyes narrowed. It's not your concern. Focus on the press, focus on what if it is my concern. She interrupted as adrenaline surged through her veins. Someone just walked out of my life, Dad. Who are they? What do they know? Richard waved dismissively, attempting to reassert his power, but then something flickered in his gaze, a shadow of uncertainty that Lydia saw all too clearly. You don't want to know what's behind this, Lydia. Some truths hurt more than others. The crowd began whispering among themselves, speculation brewing like bad coffee. The intrigue boiled down to Lydia, the girl who stood against her father. Questions bristled like electric sparks. What's the family business hiding? Who could this mysterious figure be? With every fiber in her being, Lydia felt the necessity to chase that shadow down. What if it held the key to her freedom? With renewed intensity, she turned to the crowd. Anyone see where that person went? They might have information about the truth we're all trying to find. In an instant, the air shifted. The journalists perked up, taking notes, cameras trained on her. It was an opportunity, a chance to expose more than just her father's dark reputation. But before anyone could answer, a figure emerged from the side of the stage, the last of the crowd heading for the exit. Lydia's heart raced as she recognized a woman the single mother Michelle had told her about, the one who had faced struggles so similar to her own. Lydia. The woman called, urgency saturating her voice. I saw what happened. I can help. But Richard stepped between them, his expression dark and protective, a lion warding off intruders. Stay away from her. You have no idea what you're getting into. Lydia looked from her father to this woman, her gut churning with the tension of a new alliance forming. Dad, let her talk. Get used to the idea that things are changing, the woman piped up, her voice steady. There's a whole world out there that can help you if you let it. And just like that, a new choice loomed larger than life itself. Lydia had to decide, would she follow this new thread, this potential escape route? Or cling to the bitterness of her bloodline as Richard's shadow loomed ever larger? As the audience buzzed with excitement and intrigue, Lydia felt it deep in her gut. This was just the beginning. Would the truth bind her or set her free? The moment had come. But which direction would she choose next? Lydia's heart pounded like a drum in her ears as she stood at the crossroads of a lifelong battle. The weight of the moment pressed down on her, so many eyes watching, so many stakes pinned on her decision. Richard's relentless glare turned her stomach, and yet, curiosity warmed her resolve. Let me talk to her, Lydia insisted, her voice unwavering. The words left her mouth like a declaration, carving a path through the chaos. Michelle, standing beside her, looked on with an expression that radiated fierce support. Maybe they could change things together. Richard's lip curled, but he took a step back, his body language unwilling to close off his daughter completely. Fine. But this is a dangerous game, Lydia, he warned, his voice low. You don't know who or what you're dealing with. Then help me understand, Lydia shot back, defiance burning in her chest. She turned toward the woman, who had edged closer, the fear in her eyes mingling with purpose. What do you know about my family? My name is Clara, the woman said, her voice steady and reassuring, yet trembling with urgency. I used to work for your father. I know things. Things that could change everything. But you need to listen carefully. The crowd hung on her every word, as if they instinctively knew a storm was brewing. The cameras clicked, capturing this moment of revelation, of potential upheaval. Lydia felt alive, each breath invigorated her. What kind of things? Lydia pressed, her pulse racing. She needed answers. The shadowy figure loomed in her mind like a riddle yearning to be unraveled. Clara hesitated, casting a nervous glance at Richard, who wore a mask of brewing chaos, barely hidden. Things that will make you question everything you've ever known about him. The family business isn't just about success or charity. There are secrets that could destroy lives. What secrets? Richard's voice sliced through the air, laden with a threat that sent chills down Lydia's spine. She wanted to tell him to shut up, to keep seeking the truth, yet fear held her back momentarily. Lydia, your father. Clara hesitated again, eyes darting toward the crowd. He's mixed up in something far darker than philanthropy. I didn't leave, I was forced out. They don't tolerate anyone who tries to wake the truth. Lydia's breath hitched in her throat. A flame of anger ignited. You mean to say you were fired because you wanted to tell the truth? Because you saw something you weren't supposed to? Yes. Clara nodded, her gaze firm yet filled with sorrow. I tried to expose the truth about how he conducts business. People are hurt and your father hides it all behind a facade of charity. But we're not talking about this here, Richard interjected, his voice now a low growl. You're not going to stand there and slander me in front of the press. This is a mistake, Lydia. Don't trust her. Lydia felt torn, the desire to push forward clashing with the instinct to retreat. Richard's fury crackled in the air, palpable, assertive, yet she felt an odd sense of liberation in contemplating the truth. A life built on lies couldn't stand forever. Why did you come here today? She faced Clara, taking a step closer. What do you want? I came to find you, Clara replied, her voice now a whisper above the turmoil of the crowd. To help you escape this, to show you the way to find out for yourself. Before she could process the weight of Clara's words, the atmosphere shifted again. A sudden commotion erupted at the edge of the crowd, a figure bursting through the throng of journalists, their intentions shrouded in haste. Lydia's eyes widened. Lydia! You have to listen. The newcomer shouted, breathless that a chill swept over Lydia. Who was this? What was happening now? With the plot thickening, she felt a dangerous tide rising, ready to pull her under. But just as she met the frantic gaze of the intruder, the world around them seemed to blur, and she grasped the severity of her choice. Where did the truth lead? And at what cost? The moment hung heavy in the air, tinged with uncertainty and betrayal. Lydia stood armed with only her resolve, staring into the abyss of her family's legacy. What other secrets waited to be unveiled? As the figure approached with urgency, Lydia realized this ride was just getting started. The figure finally broke through the throng, and Lydia's heart dropped. It was Alex, her childhood friend, his face flushed and glistening with anxiety. He had always been the calm in her storm, but today, panic radiated off him like heat from the pavement in the summer. Lydia! He gasped, his voice strained. He glanced nervously at Richard before continuing, You need to get out of here. There's something you don't know. What are you talking about? She said, forcing her words through a tight throat. The way Alex's eyes darted around filled her with dread. The crowd began to murmur, drawn to the rising drama, the sense that something monumental was unfolding. Listen, I overheard some things, he said, stepping closer, trying to shield their conversation from prying ears. Your father, he has connections, dangerous ones. Clara is right, Lydia. He isn't just a businessman, he's involved in something way darker than you could imagine. Stop! Richard roared, his voice booming like thunder. This is absurd. You're both being manipulated. But Lydia felt her breath quicken. What Alex said synchronized with the growing unease in her gut. Alex, what did you hear? She urged, grabbing his arm. She needed clarity, needed truth, desperately fighting the pull of fear worming its way into her mind. Last week at Brewster's meeting, he confessed, eyes wide with fear. They were talking about a deal that involved illegal activities. They mentioned you two as leverage. Lydia felt the ground shift beneath her. Leverage? Against whom? Getting to the bottom of this crime would mean navigating a reckless divide between familial loyalty and self-preservation. Leverage for what? The question slipped out, sharp and raw. Her hands trembled, she felt the weight of her family's legacy crashing down around her, but before Alex could reply, Clara stepped closer, her expression solemn. Lydia, he's right. If Richard wants to keep you in the dark, it's for a reason. He's protecting whatever he's involved in. There's more. The people he's mixed up with, they don't take kindly to loose ends. Lydia turned, her eyes darting between the three of them. The camera zoomed in, capturing every moment of the spiraling drama. More than the truth, she fought for herself, the terrified girl beneath the mask of privilege. Are you saying they hurt me? Lydia felt the chill seep through her skin. The reality twisted like a knife in her gut. "That's precisely what I'm saying," Clara replied. "You've got to decide. You can stay sheltered and pretend this family is what it seems, or you can uncover the truth and face the chaos head-on." In that moment, a piercing scream erupted from the edge of the crowd. Panic ensued. Reporters scrambled away as chaos reigned. Lydia's pulse raced as she caught a glimpse of a man in a suit being restrained, struggling against a group of security. "What is going on?" Lydia gasped, her heart pounding in a frantic rhythm. "Everything is unraveling," Alex said, his voice edged with urgency. "You need to choose, Lydia. Now. Before it's too late." With her mind swirling, Lydia felt the abyss beckoning her, a choice that echoed louder than any fear. She could feel Richard's eyes boring into her, pleading. And there was Clara, standing firm, a stranger ready to pull her into the depths of a murky truth. But then, amidst the chaos, she saw something flicker in the crowd, a familiar face, another reminder of her packaged life. As the crowd's palpable tension surged and the truth loomed like a storm gathering, questions hung in her mind. How could one moment change everything? And what was she willing to sacrifice to uncover it? "Lydia, this is only the beginning," Clara whispered, her words cloaked in both hope and foreboding. In that instant, Lydia realized. Choices had dire consequences. And in the eye of the storm, she was standing at the precipice, staring into the unknown, a plunge that could alter her life forever. As she looked at the chaos around her, the desperate faces, the shifting loyalties, Lydia braced herself. With hearts racing and secrets on the line, what lay ahead would test her very soul. The crowd's tumult roared. What awaited her on the other side of the truth? The answer was just beyond her reach, waiting, lurking. Lydia's mind raced as the chaos around her unfolded like an unspooling thread. The piercing scream had shattered whatever fragile calm clung to the gathering, only to be replaced by a cacophony of shouts and scuffles. The man in the suit was still fighting against security, his desperation palpable. What had he seen? What did he know? "Lydia." Alex's voice cut through the noise, urging her back into the moment. "We have to go. Now." But her eyes were locked on the man. She needed answers more than vague warnings and fearful implications. With a sudden surge of determination, she threw Alex's grip off her arm. "I have to find out who he is." "Lydia, no." Alex's panic rose, but Clara placed a hand on his arm, holding him back. "Let her go, Alex. She needs to do this." Heart pounding, Lydia wove through the bodies, pushing against the tide of confusion. The desperate man still yelled, words slurred in rage, and she strained to catch something, anything that would help illuminate the darkness closing in around her. "Tell them I want to keep quiet. I'll expose everything." You can't. A sudden rush of security men engulfed him. Their uniforms looked austere against the bright, frantic colors of the crowd. It was like watching a pack of wolves cornering their prey. Lydia watched in horror as they wrestled him to the pavement, the tension coiling tighter. "Stop!" she shouted, throwing herself into the fray, her heart racing with a mix of fear and fierce resolve. She could feel the eyes of the crowd on her, whispers circulating like electricity. Some urged her to flee, while others seemed to root her on. But she couldn't turn back. "Let him go!" she cried. "He's got something to say." "Wait." One guard turned, scoffing at her audacity, but another, older than the rest, hesitated, meeting her gaze. In that split second, Lydia shot him a look filled with determination. "Please. You don't have to do this." Without warning, the older man flicked his head slightly, allowing the tension to ease just enough for her to slip into the small circle of security. She crouched down near the man, her heart a drumbeat of hope and fear. "Do you know about my father?" she whispered urgently. He blinked rapidly, wild-eyed and disheveled, his breaths coming in ragged gasps. They'll come for you, too. They don't care who they hurt. Who? Who is they? But another voice echoed dangerously from behind her. She doesn't need anything from you. Richard had finally pushed through the crowd, his authority undeniable. His eyes blazed as they locked on her, panic etched in his features, a man fraying at the edges. Lydia, I promise to protect you from this. Protect me from what? She shot back, angry tears blurring her vision. You're keeping me in the dark. The man on the ground paused, his eyes searching Lydia's. They're involved in a fist slammed down, cutting him off. Enough. Richard's voice boomed, but it was too late, the crowd had heard something. The weight of 1,000 curious faces fell on them, waiting for a revelation that might just change everything. Then silence fell, a deep, chilling silence that settled over the gathered throng like a thick fog. With all eyes on them, Lydia felt the weight of the world pressing down on her shoulders. The truth was so close, shimmering tantalizingly at the edge of her grasp, yet shrouded in shadows. For a fleeting moment, she considered running, but there was no escape from the mounting storm. Do you want the truth? The man rasped, defiantly lowering his voice but still audible over the stunned gasp of the crowd. Your father, he's involved in something much worse than any of us realize. And they'll stop at nothing to keep it hidden. Before he could finish, security surged in, dragging him away. The chaos erupted anew, and suddenly, panic threatened to swallow her whole again. Lydia turned, eyes wide with realization, scanning the sea of faces. Who could she trust? Was it Alex, desperately trying to protect her? Or Clara, willing to carry her into unknown danger? But Richard? Behind the facade of control, had he been deceiving her the whole time? As the crowd continued to pulsate with confusion, Lydia sensed she stood at a pivotal moment on the brink of discovery, yet ensnared by loyalty. The question loomed larger than the strobe lights of cameras capturing every fearful face. What had she stumbled into? And how would she navigate this web of deceit before it ensnared her too? The moment stretched, taut and agonizing. Every heartbeat echoed with urgency. But as she glanced back at Clara and Alex, the choice was suddenly clear. Would she plunge deeper into this treacherous truth, or would the fear keep her tethered to the life she thought she knew? As she stepped back, bracing for either consequence, the truth or the unknown, she felt it rising within her, a mix of dread and irresistible curiosity. What awaited her, cloaked in shadows and whispers? Only the next moment would tell. Lydia's thoughts whirled as the chaos intensified around her. The crowd, like a living, breathing beast, began to shift, gasping and murmuring. Their curiosity, their fear, hung thick in the air. She stood frozen, the whispers colliding with her racing heart. The man who spoke of her father, who had hinted at a darkness she never imagined, was gone, swallowed by the fray. Lydia. Alex's voice broke through again, more frantic now, pulling her back to reality. We need to leave before it gets worse. No. She shot back, adrenaline surging through her veins. I can't just walk away. Clara, still standing with Alex, gave her a look, half support, half warning. Lydia took a deep breath, steeling herself. She had to make a choice, flee into the shadows or confront the lurking beast head-on. Heart hammering, she turned around, scanning the crowd once more, desperate for a glimpse of the man. He had sparked something in her, igniting a fire of curiosity but also dread. Suddenly, a piercing scream cut through the murmurs. Lydia whipped around to find a woman near the front, clutching her stomach in distress. The sight sent a jolt of panic coursing through her. People rushed to help, and the crowd surged forward, a tide of bodies. It was as if the incident had awakened collective hysteria. Get back! Richard shouted, bulldozing into the mass, attempting to clear a path. His eyes found Lydia's again, filled with desperation, concern spilling over that confident facade. I won't let you get involved, I promise. But Lydia's decision had already been made. She wanted the truth, whatever it might be, and she couldn't let Richard's fear cage her anymore. Inching closer to the frenzy, she caught snippets of conversation. "Did you hear what he said?" Someone gasped. "What if it's true? What if we're all in danger?" Her pulse quickened. She wasn't the only one in the dark. And if knowledge could unlock the threat, she needed to be the key. Lydia shoved forward through the crowd, her determination flaring anew. Finally, she saw a commotion at the back, where the man in the suit had last been. The security personnel were still scattered, but there were no signs of him. She stepped toward an officer, breathless. Where did he go? What did he know? The officer's stern eyes remained unfazed. "He's gone. You need to leave. That man knows something about my father." Lydia pressed. "He was trying to tell me the truth." "Enough." The officer barked, moving to block her path. "Please." Just and then, a chill difficulty overwhelmed her, a deep-seated fear mingling with the hot flame of anger pulsating in her chest. She turned sharply, determined to find someone to help. But then she caught sight of Richard again, standing firm with Alex and Clara. Their expressions were warning, hesitating between protective concern and moral obligation. "Lydia, let us go," Richard urged gently, his voice carrying a weight of authority. "Why are you really so scared?" She dared to ask, pushing the words out through the chaos. "What are you hiding from me?" Richard hesitated, eyes darting to the crowd as if searching for a lifeline amidst the storm. "It's not safe for you here. There's too much at stake. Oh, enough with the secrets," she yelled, and the crowd fell silent again. Every face turned toward her, eyes wide with astonishment, and she felt the tide of their collective judgment wash over her. Richard's gaze hardened. "You don't know what you're asking. But I deserve to know." Lydia's voice cracked, but she stood her ground. "If my father is involved in something terrible, I need to understand. Instead of hiding behind walls, I want to confront it." Richard's expression shifted, hesitation giving way to something. Was it fear? Resignation? "This isn't just about you, Lydia." Before he could finish, an unfamiliar voice called out from the side, shattering their moment. "You want the truth? Come with me." Lydia turned, blinking against the confusion. A tall woman with striking features and an urgent demeanor waved her over. "You're in danger. You have to listen to me." Lydia's heart raced. Who was this woman? What did she know? Part of her screamed to retreat to the safety of Richard's side, but another part, larger, fiercer, pulled her toward this enigmatic stranger. "Listen to me," the woman insisted, eyes blazing. "If you want to uncover the truth, you need to trust me now, before it's too late." With breaths held tight, Lydia glanced back one last time at Richard, who looked bereft, caught between his protective instincts and something darker brewing under the surface. She took a step toward the woman. Was she about to leap into the abyss? The air thickened with possibility, trembling with what lay ahead. In that moment, the world narrowed to the two of them, the crowd fading as dread and anticipation swirled in a palpable storm. What awaited her on the other side of trust? Only a single courageous step would tell. Lydia took that step, her heart racing like a freight train. Trust wasn't easy, but staying stagnant was not an option. Her gaze locked with the woman's, urgency illuminating her eyes. The crowd faded into a distant murmur, all she could hear was the thunder of her pulse. "Who are you?" Lydia questioned, but even as the words left her mouth, she felt the gravity of the moment. Doubt pulsed in her veins, but with every breath, curiosity pushed her forward. "I'm someone who knows more than anyone might realize, especially about your father," the woman replied, her voice steady, but tinged with urgency. "My name is Justine, and I've been watching things unfold. Your father's empire is built on secrets, and it's time you learned the truth." "What truth?" Lydia pressed, eyes narrowing. She had spent too long living in darkness, she ached for clarity. Justine moved closer. There are illegal dealings. Your father has connections that run deep, corporate deals that harm people. He hides behind his philanthropy, but that's just a front for something much worse. If you want to expose him, you have to take action now. Behind Lydia, the crowd seemed to buzz with anticipation, but her world narrowed further. With a quick glance backward, she saw Richard's face, a mixture of desperation and fury swelling within his features. But she couldn't focus on him. She was unearthing a potential truth, a way to finally lift the veil. Why should I trust you? Lydia's voice was sharp. She felt the weight of every past betrayal and every broken promise heavy in the air. Because I'm risking everything to tell you this, Justine replied, stepping closer, eyes fierce. There are people who would silence you to protect him. You need to act fast. Panic gripped Lydia's heart, but edged on the skirt of exhilaration too. What should I do? She asked, ready to leap into the swirling unknown. Follow me, Justine said, glancing over her shoulder as if sensing danger coiling like a serpent. We need to get away from here. Then, we can talk about what to do next. A cacophony of voices erupted when Richard shouted, Lydia, don't go with her. Every fiber of her being wanted to obey, but something deeper propelled her toward freedom. She turned to Clara and Alex, feeling torn. They had fought so hard to keep her safe, yet her search for the truth was her own battle to win. Trust your instincts, Clara whispered, squeezing her hand. You have to find out for yourself. In that moment, all the years of silence fused into clarity. She needed not just to find her voice but fight for it. She nodded. I'm going. With a decisive breath, she turned back to Justine. Lead the way. As they slipped through the crowd, Lydia felt a wave of exhilaration mixed with fear, the thrum of life surging around her. Her father's shadow was still looming, but slipping away now felt both terrifying and liberating. She traded the safety of obscurity for the raw, unfiltered truth. Justine led her through hidden corridors, away from prying eyes, until they stepped outside under the cloudy skies. The fresh air hit Lydia like a blessing. Now, we can talk, Justine said, her voice simmering with importance. You're stepping onto a path that could change everything. Are you ready? This was it. The moment Lydia had craved yet feared for so long. I am. I want to know it all. Justine nodded, bravery glistening in her eyes. Then let us understand the darkness together. Their feet moved, propelling her into a new chapter of reckoning. In the distance, storm clouds gathered, a reflective backdrop to the storm brewing within Lydia, a commitment to fight against her father's empire of silence. The truth was dangerous but necessary, a fire that would illuminate the dark corners of her life. With resolve surging through her veins, Lydia knew she was finally on the path to claiming her voice, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she was no longer a pawn in someone else's game, she was in control. As the two women walked toward uncertainty, the world behind them faded away, a broken past, but also a promise of hope. They would uncover secrets, fight the shadows, and perhaps, Lydia would find her strength on the other side. Stay tuned for more incredible journeys like this one. You need to subscribe now, so you don't miss a heartbeat. Let us drive that like button into the stratosphere, feeding the algorithm with your excitement. And join the conversation, flood the comments with your thoughts and theories about what happens next. Don't wait even one more second to share this story with at least 5 friends who deserve to experience this truth. Your support makes every moment possible. Let us do this together.